And now, the list of things that you can buy at the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com. Things to wear like Chicago Reader hats, t-shirts, bandanas, and face masks. Things for your daily life like the Chicago Reader camping mug, Chicago Reader tote bags, and a Chicago Reader reporter's notebook. Things for you to read like our Reader recipes, the Chicago Reader 420 companion, our Chicago Reader best of book series from journalists Maya Dukmasova, Mike Sula, Ben Jarofsky, and Leor Galil, the Chicago Reader coloring book, and the Chicago Reader stay home puzzle. Find the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com and show your support for the nation's first free weekly newspaper since 1971. Hey everybody, how's it going? We're live.
Yeah.
Your Ben Jarofsky show for Tuesday, March 2nd is just moments away. Happy March, Ben.
Yeah, my God, we are just marched through the calendar.
Yeah, well,
and
in the dentist calendar of life, it is bike riding season. I got to get my bike tuned up. It's official.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, I need about 30 more degrees before I get out there, but yeah. Can you believe it's been a year? A year since we were in the studio. This pandemic is no joke, young man.
I know, a whole year. And we celebrated 2 years with our anniversary show special. Have you heard it yet? Well, go check it out. It features guests that Ben Jarofsky, he had no clue who they were. It was a great time. Our anniversary special. Don't say who the guests were. For people who haven't heard it, go check it out. I just randomly throw people on the show. Got a little funky there towards the end, but we figured it out, all right? An anniversary special. Happy 2 years to our show. All right, your Ben Jarofsky show for Tuesday, March 2nd. It's just moments away. But before we do this, let's thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. The Chicago Federation of Labor. They are sponsors as well. And the Chicago Reader. You heard the commercial there in the beginning. The Chicago Reader is sponsor. chicagoreader.com for all things there is to know the city of Chicago. Go check Chicago Reader. Ben has a book. He's going to be talking more about that later on. Become a Ben head and so much more. Ben, you have a song of the day. ABC by the Jackson 5.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear which song? I just didn't hear it.
ABC by the Jackson 5. What were you doing?
You know, I just could not hear it. I don't know if the train went by, and I just could not. I heard that by the Jackson 5. By the way, it's like a Jackson 5 thing going on because my newsletter talked a little bit about the Jackson 5. Anyway, ABC, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. Come on, D, as simple as do, re, mi. ABC, 1, 2, 3, baby, you and me
now.
I'm gonna da-da-da-da-da-da. Love the Jackson 5. I got mixed feelings, obviously, about Michael Jackson. That's putting it mildly.
Well, let's nip it at the bud there. The Ben Jarofsky show starts now.
Yeah, good idea.
It is Tuesday, March 2nd. And live from my apartment in his attic, this is the Ben Jarofsky Show. Oh my, air bass. Now we got the drums. Today on the program, it's the return of political strategist Joanna Klonsky. And now your host, not a political strategist. He'd be fired on day one. Chicago Reader columnist Ben Jarofsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Jarofsky here. We're calling this Chopping Wood Tuesday. And here's why.
Timber!
Timber! Yeah, that's a good one. I should have thought of that. Timber! God, he thinks of all the good ones. Great weekend. Did you have a good weekend?
Let me think. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
How'd the skiing go?
I skied one time, and, it's not like I ski every weekend.
Folks, he skis every weekend. Then in the summer, he goes water skiing. Okay?
Pizza, French fries. Come on now. It's easy.
Anyway, great weekend for me. I saw a bunch of movies. Train to Busan. If you haven't seen this one of the greatest zombie flicks of all time. I want to thank Romana Hussein for recommending it to me. I completely loved it. My wife and I have a love for zombie flicks. I discovered, not everybody shares that love. So for instance, when I've been eagerly recommending this movie to people, I'll start off by saying, before I get into the movie, I go, do you like zombie flicks? And then I would say 9 out of 10 times, no. I'm like, what? No? And that ends it. Like, how can you recommend? I mean, they just categorically just, shot down the entire genre of film.
I didn't take you for a zombie film guy.
I love zombie flicks. I love horror flicks. I love scary movies, even though I'm scared of scary movies. I have, if it's a good scary movie, 50% of the time I'll have my hands covering my eyes. And then there's the guys who are not scared at movies. Oh God, that wasn't scary at all. No, I'm scared. And I like being scared in the movie and
Quick.
So anyway.
What's the number one zombie movie, according to Ben Joravsky?
Train to Busan. I'm going with it. I just saw it. South Korean flick, number one, Train to Busan. And then I like that, what's it called? Zombieland with
Woody Harrelson?
Woody Harrelson. I kind of like that. I think I've seen that 2 times. I like that zombie flick that came out with Bill Murray. Nobody else in my family liked it, but I thought it was pretty funny. And an Adam Driver. Anyway, I could go on and on about zombie, but Train to Busan is beyond zombie flick. It really gets into the inherent greed and selfishness of man. So it's greater than a zombie flick. Also saw Minari, beautiful movie about a Korean family making their way in Arkansas in the 90s. I loved it. I was crying like a baby at it. Great, great movie. And then I saw The Dig. Not that great. But I just want to say this, okay? And I know people go, oh, Ben, you sound like Donald Trump. Okay, I'm going to say it, though. I've been going on and on about how I'm kind of tired about American directors who are casting Brits to play Americans in a movie. It just happened in Judas and the Black Messiah, where they had a Brit play the role of Fred Hampton. I'm like, you couldn't find a Chicago actor to play Fred Hampton, the quintessential Chicagoan, one of the great historical figures of recent times in the city of Chicago. Couldn't find a guy in Chicago to do that. Okay. But I'm watching The Dig, D. It's all, Brits, set in 1930s England. Not one American. Okay. Hey, Brits, can't find an American guy. I could do a British accent. Hello, mate. There you go. Put me in the movie. Anyway, The Dig is kind of dumb, but yeah, that is the worst movie I've ever seen. Anyway.
Ben, I just took a look at our stats. Looks like our numbers in Britain are down. Do you have any any reason why that is?
Yeah. Are you going to blame me? Because I'm just saying they're great actors, but come on now. Find a guy in Chicago to play Fred Hampton. People accuse me of sounding like Donald Trump. You sound like Donald Trump when you say that. Anyway, so I got up real early today. That was the big news. Real early, chopping wood early, hence the name of the show. Why are you chopping wood? Is because I always talk about how Dennis, when it's nice out, gets up at 5, chops some wood, like his days in Alton when he was a young man on the Mississippi River chopping wood, and then he goes for a bike ride. That's true, right? That's how you get, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Maybe not the chopping wood part, but the bike ride part. Anyway, that's what I did today. I got up early. For me, I didn't chop wood. I didn't go for a bike ride, but I got up early. Why, you asked, D? Good question. I had to drive to the reader office in the South Loop to sign books. Yes, my book came out, compilation of my quote-unquote greatest hits. And wow, I just got to take a moment to talk about it and think about it, to breathe and just sort of digest this fact that for over 40 years, I've been in this business in this town. Chicago is now my adopted hometown. And I was with Sandra Klein. Shout out to Sandra Klein, who was helping me sign the books. And she goes, "You're not from Chicago originally?" I go, "No, I'm not." She goes, "Oh my God, you've been doing this forever in Chicago." And no, I had that big decision to make back in 1980. I was driving across the country. I had a job in Connecticut, and I could have settled in any town. And I visited Denver and LA and San Francisco and Seattle, all these other towns. Milwaukee, could have lived anywhere. I chose to live in Chicago. And I must have liked it because I found this box of letters this weekend. I was going through the stuff at my parents' house. I found this box of letters, including a letter that was written to me by a friend early 80s. And he was urging me to visit him in D.C. where he lived. And he says, you got to come here. You always talk about how great Chicago is. You got to see how another city is. And I was thinking, wow, all I do is moan and groan these days, D, about Chicago and its insane politicians. And there must have been a time when I loved Chicago so much, I obsessively talked about it to my friends who didn't live here. Chicago's so cool, man. In Chicago, we do this. In Chicago, we do that. So as I sit here, I'm looking out the window at that beautiful porta potty in that alley, and I'm trying to remember what it is exactly that I love so much about Chicago. And D, I got to say, it has to be the people. It's certainly not the weather. That's for certain. And it's certainly not a lot of some of our elected officials, although I kind of like them too. There's so many characters in this town. And there's so many people who've taught me so much in the 40 or so years that I've lived here. The way they talk, the logic they employ, their toughness when it comes to exchanges, they're always in your face. And then their mildness when it comes to challenging power. I open this book to any freaking page, and I'll introduce me to a great character that I met in the city of Chicago. I'm just going to open this book right now. And okay, so this is a story I did in 1996 about Muhammad Ali. I was obsessed with Muhammad Ali. Well, I'm obsessed with Muhammad Ali, but I was obsessed with the story about whether Muhammad Ali kept his gold medal or threw away his gold medal in an act of protest. And I was turned on to this fact by the 1996 Olympics, when at the opening of the opening ceremony, Muhammad Ali lit the ceremonial torch. He carried the torch in. He lit the ceremonial flame for the Olympics. And Bob Costas, who was doing the announcing for NBC, said that they're going to give Muhammad Ali a new gold medal to make up for the one he lost in 1960. He had won the gold medal in 1960, and then he lost it. And there was an apocryphal tale, Bob Costas said, that he had thrown away the medal in protest, but in fact, he just lost it. And I'm like, I'm watching this, I'm going, apocryphal tale? Muhammad Ali was the one who told that story. We know who told that story. It was not some unrooted tale with no source. Muhammad Ali was the source. And the Chicago connection, it was in a book called The Greatest, which I obsessively read in the 70s. And it was co-authored by Richard Durham, who's a great Chicago writer. And so I tracked down Richard Durham's son, Mark Durham, to talk about it. But it's like Bob Costas had insulted a great Chicagoan, Richard Durham, by saying Muhammad Ali, this story wasn't true. By the way, Muhammad Ali never denied the story. I don't know if it's true or not. For all I know, he did make it up, but he never denied it. The only person I heard deny it was people like Bob Costas, who wasn't around in 1960. So anyway, D, it's sort of like that. It's just like everywhere I've gone for the last 40 years, I've met someone incredible in the city of Chicago. And they all like a part of me. And they're like part of my worldview and part of my voice, the voice that you hear on the show, the voice that you read in the reader. So thank you, one and all. I came here in 1981. I could have lived anywhere. And here I am 40 years later in Chicago.
God.
We got a great show today, everyone. Joanna Klonsky, political strategist and operative, will be here talking to Andrew Cuomo, men behaving badly, the future of the Democratic Party, Robin Kelly or Michelle Harris. Who should the Democrats choose to run their state party? Can Pritzker be reelected? Oh, my God, so much to talk about. What to make of AK-16. AK-16. Yeah, Adam Kinzinger. That's his new nickname, ladies and gentlemen.
He loves that nickname, guys. Can you tell?
All right, for 10 trivia points, you already answered this question. In basketball, there was an AK-47. His name, please.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Huh?
Who else? I want everybody to know that you talk on the Ben Joravsky Show. Go ahead.
Andrei Kirilenko, number 47, AK-47.
I can't
Utah
believe
Jazz.
He knew that. Yes. I could not believe he knew that. I said, we're going to talk about AK-16 tonight, by the way. Who's the original AK? And I thought he would go, I don't know. He knew it.
Adam Kinzinger, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, so a lot to talk about with Joanna Klonsky. We're going to get into all that. But before we do that, the young man from home, the man they call DS-47, just didn't really work out.
No.
The man they call Dr. D with the news.
Hey there. Dennis here. Name's Dennis. Before we find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon, yes, Ben Joravsky's book is out. Go get it. But his latest column has yet to drop. And right now, a sneak peek. Oh, my goodness. Ben, I know you wrote it on Monday. Tell us a bit about your latest column soon to come out at chicagoreader.com. Maybe give us the inspiration behind it.
You know, guys, I said it's been a while since I wrote a TIFF story. You guys are getting lazy. All right, you're falling asleep on the TIFF beat. You're like, oh, Ben's not writing about it. I guess the problem went away. No, negatory. It's still there. So I did another TIFF story. Maria Pappas, Cook County Treasurer, did something that I never thought I'd see a politician do. She took the TIFF areas, not just Chicago, but all of Cook County, and broke them out commissioner by commissioner, so we could see like which commissioner got how much money in last year in TIFs. It's not really, the commissioners don't control it, but their symbols, their districts are symbolic of like who got what, who wins and who loses. And guess what? As we all know, the richer you are, the more TIF money you get. It's a program intended to help the poor and it benefits the rich. It's utterly insane that we perpetuate this program. We continue this program, particularly, D, when so many people say the number one thing I want to do is eradicate social inequity. That's what's most important. Okay, guys, the program that's supposed to eradicate social inequity, guess what? Is inequitable. It favors the rich over the poor. Well, Ben, don't talk about it. Let's not do anything on it, okay? Can you talk about something else other than that? D, I've lived here for 40 years. It's the flip side. I was waxing nostalgic about how much I love the people. But I'll tell you about something else about Chicagoans. Stubborn bunch. Well, once they get something, that's it. Nope, not going to change. Nope. We got this TIF program. We like it. We don't care what you say about it. Monroe's got a neighbor. He tells me about it from time to time as a TIF consultant. And Monroe, in the old days when he would be going for walks as opposed to hanging out in his house for fear of the virus, he'd bump into the neighbor. The neighbor would be walking still. It goes, that friend of yours doesn't know a thing about TIFs. Okay? I know everything about TIFs. Monroe goes, all right, well, why don't you go talk to him? No, I won't be quoted. Oh, isn't that funny, D? The guys who know so much, but won't be quoted. That's another thing. That's not just Chicago, but that's journalism in general, D. People, okay, this is off the record. And then they tell you something. It's like, why is that off the record? That's not even remotely controversial. That's something else I've stopped doing, D, over 40 years. I'm not quoting anybody anymore.
Good.
That's it. No more quotes. You either come on the show and talk into the microphone and tell people what you want to think. No more of this. Let's go off the record on this. And then they tell you, well, the sky is blue. Oh, we had to go off the record for that? For that, we went off the record? Anyway, that's a tangent, D. I started talking about my column and I ended there. It's a great column about TIFs. Maria Pappas, what a character she is. Cook County Treasurer. We got to bring her on the show, D. See if I get a word in edgewise with her. So that's what I wrote about. The inequity of the TIF program. Once a month, I'm going to write a column about that, folks, because you're falling asleep on that one.
Wow. Quit yelling at our listeners.
I love you, listeners.
Thank you.
I got up. You got to know how early I got up today, D? I may fall asleep right in the middle of
Please don't do that.
I got up so early, man. There were birds chirping. Chirp, chirp, chirp.
Love the days when Ben wakes up early. Man, I woke up early. Okay. It's great. It's the latest column from our very own Ben Jarofsky. And guys, you just got a sneak peek. It's not out yet, all right? So you'll be, you can go tell people you know a little bit about it. ChicagoReader.com. Be on the lookout. Okay, local news. Let's do this. Wait, hold on a second.
Where's my newspapers?
You good? Are you there? Hello? Ben?
Yeah, I'm there. I just get my newspapers out. That's all.
Okay, great. Local news. Let's do this.
Springtime. Love it.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. And we can only hope he's wearing his face covering as Governor J.B. Pritzker's Illinois COVID-19 vaccination site tour continues. Today, J.B. Pritzker visited a vaccination site in Aurora, Illinois. He gave a Q&A this morning. And, well, he had vaccines on his mind. Here's a little bit of audio from the governor this morning.
Even if everyone who wants to be vaccinated today were to receive it, that wouldn't be enough for us to reach herd immunity. So it's important that we get the message out to those who are vaccine hesitant, that vaccines are safe and they offer effective protection against serious COVID illness and death.
Anything else, Governor?
To get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible, we have to not only increase the pace of vaccinations, but also do the outreach to help those who might not have the technology or the transportation available to them, or who've been misinformed about the nature of vaccines.
All right, it is now time for a segment on the program, a new segment that we call a vaccine update. Ben Jarofsky, have you got the vaccine?
No, this cracks me up, man. That is a great segment. A new segment on the program. People, we spent the entire weekend working on that site. I just want you to know, okay? All weekend long with the the intro music. All right? We were working like at least 3 hours on Sunday, trying different songs to lead. Which one should we lead in? I think we'll go with that one, like this Jaws theme. Okay. But no, I've not got it. And I just had a laugh listening to JB, Governor Pritzker, going on and on about urging people to get the vaccine. Governor, message to Governor, the vaccine doesn't exist.
Hello?
This whole freaking rollout is a joke. Hello? Vaccine not here. It's the worst rollout ever. I'm sorry. Gotta say it. Not your fault, okay? There's a lot of issues here with the vaccine. Our last president was a joke on the issue of the vaccine. Somehow or other, he couldn't coordinate it, that the federal government would have enough vaccines produced to get it to everybody. But no, oh my God, the stuff you have to go through to get a vaccination and the way people behave with the vaccination, they buy into it. They buy into this insanity where we supposedly have this monumental crisis we're facing in our country that shut down our economy and must be solved at all costs, which is this pandemic. We have a solution, but we're not going to distribute it fully. It's dribs and drabs. And then it's like you gotta really understand the system. And the system's online, which is a problem right there. Right there is a huge problem. Message to the people who run this country. Not everyone's online. Oh, I know you love your little TikTok and your Instagram and your Twitter and
this is how we build a podcast audience on the internet, I tell you. This is how we do it. This is it. I love this strategy.
It's true. It's true, D. There is a little inconsistency here. I'm on the internet with this podcast. I actually use email. But a lot of people don't. And they don't know how to deal with it. I read this story over the weekend, D. This kid, he's 14 years old, lives in Chicago. So, of course, he knows computers. Kids, 14-year-old kid was born with a computer chip in his head. Comes out of the womb. So he knows it. God bless this kid. He sounds like a great kid. He's helping all these geezers, these baby boomers. I don't understand this thing. Help me out here, like me. Every day, Dennis sends me the hookup email, and I'm like, that pause where I confront the computer. If I do this, the whole thing is going to go down. That's how a lot of babies, not all of you. Oh my God. You know what's kind of annoying? The baby boomers know computers. They, you know what I mean? Yeah, I know computers. They think that's like hip. That is hip. But there's a lot of people out there who don't even know as much as I do, which is frightening. So they're out of the loop, guys. Did you think about that? Did you think about that at all? It's so important that absolutely everybody, there's a great risk, get the vaccine. Well, what about the thousands and thousands of people who don't have computer access? Did you think about them? No, we didn't think about them. But it's really important everybody get the vaccine. So anyway, then there's guys like me. I want the vaccine, D. I've signed up like at 3 or 4 sites. Every day somebody gives me a different site. I want to thank Frank. He gave me a different site to sign up for. I appreciate people looking out for me. I got an email from a friend, dear friend, explained what he did to get vaccinated. What he did was so complicated, D, and he was urging me to do it. And it was like essentially, the message was I was supposed to go to a site where they're giving the vaccine, sign up, and even though they tell me, they're going to tell you, leave. Don't leave. This is the advice. They're going to tell you to leave. They're going to say, I don't have no vaccines. Don't listen to them. Because at the end of the day, there'll be some vaccines left over, and you'll get it. So you got to stay there for like 4 hours. This is the vaccine. 2021, the most important thing in the world. And then if you're lucky, after 4 hours, all right, I got an extra vaccine. Come here, big guy. Roll up that sleeve. Everywhere I go on the Facebook, baby boomers. I got vaccinated. My wife got vaccinated. I'm like, what am I, chopped liver?
Meanwhile, you got JB hopping town to town doing vaccination tours. Give me one of those. All right, next, let's go.
Vaccination tours, town to town, JB. I hate to break it to you. There's no vaccines. Have you ever gone on one of those websites, D?
No.
No, you're not. Yeah. Oh, my God. Website down. We'll be up in a little while. My wife is like, you got to do it every 5 minutes. You got to go check in with the thing. Oh, what a great rollout. Let's fight the pandemic. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to find a new way to torture people. They have to go online 50 times a day. Anyway, but see, that's just, I got a bad attitude.
Never.
Got a bad attitude, D. Because so many of my baby boomer peers, they're happily going on the internet day in and day out. They don't complain. Look at me complaining. I got a bad attitude. D, I got to clean up my attitude. The problem is me, not thee. So I'm going to change my ways starting right now.
All right. That'll probably change in about 5 minutes. Hey, shout out to our friend Dog Doggerson on the live stream chat. Dog Doggerson writes, the testing place I go to started requiring a smartphone.
You're kidding.
No.
That proves my point, Dog. Thanks for writing in. Or barking in.
Oh my God. How did a dog... Okay, that's cool, but how did a dog join a live stream chat room? That's my big question.
Yeah, the dog got on. Meanwhile, all these baby boomers don't even have computers. Do you think Phyllis knows how to use a computer?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, Phyllis.
She's on those Facebook yard sales, baby.
Phyllis, of course, the brains behind the defeat of the fair tax.
So, by the way, the answer for our segment has been Jarofsky got a vaccine? No, he hasn't. He's still waiting. Okay. The governor was also asked about the current race for Democratic Party of Illinois chair. That's right. The seat that Mike Madigan once held. It's now down to 2. Chicago Alderwoman Michelle Harris. Ben, of what ward?
8th. Come on.
Name one school in that ward.
Black Elementary. Simeon High School. South Shore High School. He was in the 5th.
Okay, I said one. You're now embarrassing yourself. You're a nerd. Just one. Only needed one.
I think it may be in the redistricting in the 8th, but don't quote me.
So it's Alderwoman Michelle Harris and Congresswoman Robin Kelly. Last week, Pritzker let the cat out of the bag. Ben? That pre-show meeting paid off? The governor told us who he is backing to replace Madigan in one of his 600 positions. He's backing Michelle Harris.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, here we are 1 week later. Has the governor waffled?
Process that we want to make sure that we're including all features of the Democratic Party. We're a big tent party. We're a party that's inclusive and not exclusive like the GOP is. And so I'm very proud, actually, of the way that people are operating. I think there'll be a vote tomorrow evening, I think. I'm not part of that, but I know that the members of the State Central Committee will make their decision, and that we have two qualified candidates. I'm supporting one in particular, Michelle Harris, who I think is a terrific person who's built over decades a ground operation, knows how to get voters to the polls, has supported Democrats up and down the ballot across the state.
No, he is not. He's still rooting for Michelle Harris. You know, are you walking around?
No, that's some guy in the alley. Do you hear a knocking sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's let me look. Oh, it's some guy hammering. Hold on. Hey!
Oh my God! Don't.
We're doing a podcast. Stop. Huh? Yeah. No, I don't care if you got the guy in the porta potty. Tell him to leave. We're doing a podcast.
All right.
Sorry, D.
He was hammering as you were yelling that, so the guy, he ruined the bit. Bastard. I thought you were. I wasn't looking at your camera. I thought you were like pacing back and forth or something. Like, what are you doing? Okay.
He's still hammering. So here, I'll show you a little technical thing I could do. Watch.
Oh, mute. There we go. That's great. Good job. He's a muter, guys. So, no, the governor has not waffled. He's still rooting for Michelle Harris. And, you know, not a lot of people on team Robin Kelly at the moment. In fact, a law firm that represents the Democratic National Committee and political candidates across the country, including Governor J.B. Pritzker, issued a memo Monday. A memo casting doubt on Representative Robin Kelly's ability to chair the Illinois Democratic Party while also serving in Congress. Ben, $50 says Madigan has something to do with it. The following comes from Shia Kapos in Illinois Politico. Perkins Coy, I'm going to butcher this. Perkins Coy partner Brian Svoboda.
I think it's Swoboda, but don't quote me.
Ah, all right. Hey, if you're coming for correct pronunciations on the Ben Joravsky Show, you're not going to get them. All right. This person says Kelly, quote, would need to resign from federal office or curtail her duties as a party chair so she, quote, does not establish, finance, maintain, or control of party funds for purposes of federal campaign finance law. This is according to the memo sent to acting party chair Karen Yarbo. Representative Chuy Garcia called the attorney's memo an attempt to, quote, delegitimize Kelly. In a statement released Monday night, he called on party leaders to focus on, quote, modernizing its finance operation, developing an army of small dollar donors, and engaging in activating a rapidly charging electorate. Kelly offered her own legal opinion from Illinois election attorney Michael Dorf. Dorf wrote, quote, there is no legal obstacle to Kelly serving as party chair while acknowledging that the Federal Election Commission may have to clarify some duties about raising or spending, quote, soft money if she became party chair. So far, Harris has 44% of the vote from 15 committee members, and Kelly has 29% with 10 supporters. State Rep Al Riley and Sheila Stocks Smith, recently appointed member of the Democratic State Central Committee from the 18th Congressional District, said Monday that they will back Robin Kelly. So how about Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky? Where do you stand, sir? Michelle Harris or Robin Kelly?
Well, I'm not ready to answer that question right now, D. I'm open for I'm open for solicitations from both candidates. How's that? I'm going to be one of those late to make up their mind types. Isn't that how you should play the game, D? Like, Take your time. Make up your mind. It's all about love. Oh, sorry. I just out of nowhere, I started channeling this Earth, Wind, and Fire song from 1975. I humbly apologize. All right. Let's just break all this down. Number one, I'm going to write down what I want to talk about. Aldermen, election lawyers.
You usually do that before the show, but go ahead. Sure.
Mad again. Okay. Number one, alderman, alderwoman, 8th Ward Alderman Michelle Harris. This is nothing derogatory about Michelle Harris. So Michelle Harris fans, don't send in emails. I'm just going to make a very general observation. Do not send emails complaining. I'm just saying, I'm not certain that if you're talking about promoting a statewide party, a Democratic Party that is competitive in areas that have gone for Trump, downstate areas that our show's producer, Dr. D, will tell you are filled with Pritzker suck signs. Downstate areas that are so hostile to Chicago that their state reps go around talking about how they want to secede from the state and be independent of Chicago. Okay? If you're talking about building a base of support in areas like those, areas where they love Jimmy Buffett more than I love fried chicken. I just threw that in there for Dennis. I'm not certain that a Chicago alderwoman is the prototypical type that you want doing the outreach. I'm not saying anything bad about Michelle Harris. She may be absolutely the right person to go downstate and tell all those Jimmy Buffett lovers in Godfrey. Didn't know I knew that town, did you, D? And Alton and all those other communities that they should vote Democrat. But just on the surface, it just does not seem like an astute move. D, if you go to somebody downstate and you say, I'm a Chicago alderman, do you think that's going to be a selling point, or do you think that's going to turn people off? Your thoughts.
You're going to get called a hippie in like 3 seconds.
See what I'm saying? A freaking hippie or an effing hippie. I don't swear on the show, D.
Now there are liberals and Democrats downstate, obviously, but you know.
But even they don't like Chicago aldermen. So I don't
think I even like Chicago aldermen. All right. I don't think you like a lot of Chicago aldermen.
Let me say this. I love Chicago aldermen. How many aldermen have we had on this show in the last week alone, D?
You're right.
Matt Martin, you know I love him. Rosanna, Byron, Scotty Wagasback. I love Chicago. Sue Sadlowski Garza.
You're right. I sit corrected.
Yeah. You know I love Chicago aldermen. But I'm not a typical downstate voter. I'm not a downstate voter at all. I've never even lived downstate. I went to Carbondale once. It was so high, I can't remember anything that happened. I saw a Bruce Springsteen concert in Champaign. That's as close to as I've come to downstate. I'm just saying, it just does not seem to be like an astute move by someone looking to build a Democratic brand in Bob Diber country. And you know what it tells me, folks? They're not interested in building the Democratic brand in Bob Diber country. What they're interested in doing is consolidating their power in Cook County and DuPage County and Lake County. Those are the areas around the city of Chicago and the city of Chicago. So that's just what it says to me, D. That's just... Now, I don't know if Robin Kelly, 2nd Congressional District Congresswoman, in that area is South Chicago and into the southern suburbs. I don't know if she's any better at winning over downstate Dems or Dems outside of the Chicago area. And I don't even know if that should be the goal. Maybe what they're saying is these communities are so far removed from us, they will never come back. We're not going to even think about them anymore. Maybe that's what they're saying. But I just got to say on the surface, putting a Chicago alderwoman up as the chairman of the Democratic Party in the state of Illinois, it's not really sending a message that you understand, care about the people who don't live like in the general Chicago area. So that's my first thoughts on that subject. The second issue, the election lawyers. What a joke. What a joke, D. They drag out some election lawyer is that what Chiacapo said, that his firm worked for Pritzker?
Yep.
Oh, what? Oh, he's not biased. Why don't you? That's like dragging me out in the middle of a fight between Lori Lightfoot and the Chicago Teachers Union and saying, "For an unbiased opinion on what's going down, let's listen to a guy who loves the Chicago Teachers Union." At least I admit my biases. So I don't know. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. You can get any opinion you want from a lawyer. That's what they're there for. They're taught. That's what they're taught. Jim Coogan explained this to me. In law school, you're supposed to argue each side of a position. So if you got to argue that Robin Kelly is not eligible because of some federal law, you make that argument. And then you're taught to argue the reverse. Do a flip-flop and argue the reverse. So, how is that significant? How is that news? Michelle Harris found some lawyer, or the people who support Michelle Harris found some lawyer who said, "Well, I studied the law, and the candidate I oppose is not eligible to run." You know what, I've thought, why don't more politicians do that? Can you imagine? Lori Lightfoot would run unopposed. She'd get some lawyer who supports her. I'm sure there's some lawyers in Chicago. Get Flessner. He's not doing anything anymore. Mark Flessner, the former corporation counsel. Lori Lightfoot just fired him. Get Flessner to make a bunch of rulings. Stacey Davis Gates is not eligible to run for mayor because she played basketball in the South Bend. Yes.
That's a good Flessner.
That's good Flessner.
Spot on.
Who else is a potential candidate against Lori Lightfoot? Byron Sisha Lopez of the 25th Ward is not eligible to run for mayor against Lori Lightfoot because once upon a time, he didn't have cable TV. It's a fact. Look it up. Election law. You got to have cable TV to run. I'm a lawyer. I looked it up. As I like to tell Jim Coogan, you can find a lawyer to say anything. So I'm not that impressed, Dave. Sorry, I'm not that impressed that Michelle Harris supporters found some lawyer willing to say that Robin Kelly's ineligible. And then they got Michael Dorf was a guest on this show once, Steve. Do you remember that?
I thought so.
Yeah, he was a guest. Michael Dorf, among other things, is known for wearing bow ties. I'm not making that up.
Oh, no. Sorry, I don't remember. I thought you were talking about the guy on those videos, like Dorf goes fishing and stuff like that. I guess.
No, I don't even know what that video is, and it's not him. Oh. Although maybe Michael Dorf goes fishing. In The Dig, on a tangent, the guy who is digging, what's his name? Ralph Fiennes? Is that how he pronounces his name? The British actor? Oh, they couldn't find an American to play that role, huh? Anyway, in The Dig, he's an excavator, and he's digging up the dirt to find the ruins below the ground. He's wearing a tie and a jacket. I'm like, wow, things were different back in the 1930s. He wore a tie and a jacket. Going to work today. What a dig with a tie and a jacket. Anyway, I just thinking of Michael Dorf with his bow tie fishing. Anyway, Robin Kelly got her lawyer. Yeah, he read the same federal law and go, oh yeah, of course she's eligible. So let's not listen to the lawyers, guys. I know you want to. By the way, speaking of which, Adolfo Mondragon, I cut a deal with him. He'll be returning to the show. Adolfo Mondragon, our favorite election lawyer, will be in and he's battling Michael Dorf in a case right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It all comes together, The world comes together.
My God.
So guys, what a scam. Okay? I gotta give Pritzker's crowd credit. They found some lawyer. They dragged him. They got the Sun-Times to bite. They wrote a story. Capos wrote a story. Everybody's writing stories. Our election lawyers say. Anyway, I would have written a story too. It's fun. You got quote this election lawyer, then you quote that election lawyer. And isn't there right? Madigan's probably sitting back laughing his little booty off. Look at me.
Well, but isn't there a little bit of what are you saying? A woman can't do multiple jobs at once aspect to this as well? No,
am I saying that?
No, I'm saying with this lawyer and everything. You know what I mean?
Oh, in other words, they're arguing that Robin Kelly, who is a woman, is that the woman in question that you're talking about?
Yeah,
she can't be a kind. Oh, well, they're saying that's okay. They're not literally saying that she's incapable of handling both jobs at once because she's just can only do one thing at once, as opposed to me. I'm talking to you while I'm looking outside at that carpenter doing two things at once. They're arguing that legally, the job she has as congresswoman prevents her from conducting the job as chair of the Democratic Party.
Haters gonna hate.
But your point's a good one. They may be putting that out there subliminally, so voters in Illinois are thinking it. Whoa, that's deep, D. That election lawyer is no joke. I'm going to wash your brains.
I'm not a perfect person.
Of course, just so you know, if Alderwoman Michelle Harris is selected as the party chair, that means she will have the following jobs. Do you ready? She will be Alderwoman of the 8th Ward. She'll be committee woman of the 8th Ward. She'll be a state central committee woman. She will be Mayor Lori Lightfoot's floor leader, right? Don't forget, she's the floor leader of Mayor Lori Lightfoot. She will be chair of the Rules Committee in the Chicago. Oh my God, I think I'm up to 5 things. And party chair. I was counting on my fingers. It's pretty embarrassing when you miscount and you're counting on your fingers.
By the way,
she'll be very busy.
By the way, everybody, if you haven't heard of it, Google Dorf Goes Fishing. It's very awesome stuff. Oh, man, I got one. Oh, coming.
We haven't done that fishing one in a while.
Been waiting almost a year to play that one, pal. All right.
Wait, didn't we do it with the alligator?
I don't know.
When were we doing that with the alligator?
No, they were talking about how some of the things that you couldn't do because of the pandemic, and fishing was one of them.
Anyway, I do believe you're right that Michael Madigan is laughing somewhere going, no, they don't miss me now, huh? You miss me yet? That's what Trump's thing was when he gave his speech. You miss me yet? No, nobody misses you. All right. And Madigan's like, miss me yet?
All right. And since we're talking about Democrats and infighting and all that good stuff, our good friend Steven reached out on the live stream chat, wondering if you read the email that he sent to you.
Yes. I have to find it.
Yeah, you could be like Steven, reach out to the Ben Jarofsky Show, BennyJShow@gmail.com, BENNY, the letter J show @gmail.com. Leave your name, where you're from. There's a good chance we will read your email like we're about to do with Steven.
Yes, here we go. Hi, Dennis. Hi, Dan. Hope you're good. Today's show was bitchin'. Great work. During the show, Ben, you made an offhand remark about wondering why the lefty set doesn't like being called, quote, liberals anymore. I have a few thoughts, and so I figured I'd kick them over to you for consideration. Also, given the fact that most of your audience are mostly members of the shit on millennials. Now, that is so not true, Steve. I love millennials. I thought it'd be useful to share a millennial Gen Z lefty perspective. Very good. But first, some words from academics to make my arguments more credible. Quote, there is only one party in the United States, the Property Party, and it has 2 right wings, Republican and Democrat, unquote. That is, the great Gore Vidal wrote that. And then Method Man, quoting Raider Ruckus, quote, cash rules everything around me. CREAM. Get the money.
Dollar bills, y'all. It's a song.
Yeah. Okay. But I wasn't going to do it as a song. All right. You know what I mean? But that would look really stupid if I, yep. But no, I'm well aware of Method Man. I knew his brother. Okay.
Who's his brother? Who's his brother? Tell us, man. Who's his brother?
Horace Man. Yes. I was the only man I could think of at that moment. And then he had a cousin named and Woman. Man and Woman. Oh. Sorry. It's really lame. I start with property and wealth to highlight the fundamental nature of power in America. Historically speaking, America was one, as historians call it, bourgeois revolutions in the 18th century that built a society where the owners of property and not divine monarchs would be the masters of society. James Madison, lead author of the U.S. Constitution and founder of the Democratic Republican Party, puts it like this, quote, the primary function of government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority of the poor. Wow. And that's pretty well, that kind of sums it all up, Stephen. And what canon of political philosophy was Madison steeped in? Why, European enlightened liberalism, of course. In the modern era, liberal has come to mean quite narrowly the segment of the Dallas Property Party that thinks women, queer folks, immigrants, Black, Indigenous, and people of color at all should be considered fully entitled to human rights, reflecting the practice ideals of the founding liberal elite, but ignoring the choices they make. So why then are today's DSA, BLM, anti-fascist, Occupy Wall Street alum, ascendant political class so opposed to being lumped in with liberals? Because increasingly, many of them are honest-to-God leftists. They believe actual leftist ideals like social welfare programs, a classless society, workplace democracy, and the abolition of capitalism. They read Jacobin and Crime Think. They are inspired by the works of David Graeber and bell hooks and by leaderless, horizontally organized movement. To these people, to us, liberal is a dirty word. Liberals are the members of the professional managerial class who live in skyscrapers paid for by the craven intergenerational rat fucking of the middle and the work. That is a very
let's put a beep in there.
All right. Liberals sold us the deadly lie that all they had to do was take on massive debt, go to college, and prosperity would be ours. Goes on from there. But Stephen, I can't argue with anything you say. You say it very well. You're taking a look at it from the perspective of why a lefty wouldn't want to be a liberal. And I agree with pretty much everything you wrote to that point. The flip side of that is how liberals don't want to be thought as liberals anymore. Yeah, so I think that the left, between the left and the right, they've so discredited the word liberal that now liberals want to be called progressives, which is a joke, in my humble opinion, Stephen, because a progressive is, by definition in the word itself, somebody who thinks in terms of making society more progressive. So, and the thing I always talk about, taxation, more progressive taxes, so the wealthier pay more. And yet many of the liberals who rule our city, state, and Washington don't want progressive taxes. And yet they want the title of progressive. So it's those people that confuse me. They want to be known as progressives, even though they're not for progressive values. Makes no sense at all. And I think it's largely because the left and the right together, coming at it from different ways, has really sullied what the word liberal means. For instance, when I first met Dennis, I said, Dennis, what are your politics? He goes, I'm liberal. And now when I just threw that in there. And now he won't go near it. But seriously, Dennis would never go near the word liberal. He would not want to be known as a liberal. And that's because the word liberal has just got such a bad connotation on every front. So do you know what? You know how everybody goes this way, I go that way? It's worked really so well for me. Here they go this way, I'll go that way. I want to be known as a liberal. I am a liberal. That's what I'm going to be from now on. Liberal talk. Wait, didn't I get kicked off the liberal?
Could have used that about 2 years ago, buddy. This new Ben Jarofsky.
A little late on that train. Even the liberal radio station calls themselves progressives. Think about that. We're progressive talk, but don't talk about TIFs. Anyway, D, that's a great letter, Stephen. I appreciate it. And you're absolutely correct. That's why lefties don't want anything to do with the liberal ladle.
And Stephen, congratulations. You are now the record holder of the longest email anyone has ever sent us. My God, that was long. Have nothing going on that day, man? I kid. All right. And that is our local news. But,
there was something else you were going to say in the news.
That's 157.
You forgot. Huh?
We got more. What?
You forgot, huh? You forgot school open.
Well, there's plenty more show to go. All right. So when we finish our interview with Joanna Klonsky, we'll talk about the news that we missed while we were gone. Yes, students have returned to school. We're going to talk so much more city news as well. But, Ben, why not just keep this statewide news going? You know what I mean? And, let's talk a little bit about trampolines. What do you say?
Wow. Was that in our pre-show production meeting? I don't recall.
No.
But let's talk about it. Okay.
Yeah. Little did you know there's trampoline regulation going on right now in Illinois. And we have audio to hear more about it. And like I said, more city news coming up after our interview with Joanna Klonsky. Going to be talking all things Chicago mayor. Oh, no, we're going to be talking about Cuomo, I believe, right?
Yes.
Oh, that dirty Cuomo. What are you doing, Cuomo? We're going to be talking that and so much more. But here's a little trampoline regulation talk.
Trampoline parks can cause both minor and severe injuries. Common injuries include broken legs, compound fractures, head trauma, brain injuries, spinal fractures, neck injuries, dislocations, and sprains.
Anything else?
When parents take their children to an amusement park or jump facility, they expect that the facility has their child's safety in mind. They do not expect that facilities with an unsafe design and ineffective safety measures leading to injuries and potentially lifelong disabilities and death are allowed to operate.
There you go.
Where was that from?
That's what's going on in the Illinois news. And I got to say, the trampoline talk, way better than Trent Ford. Way to go, whoever that was.
I disagree.
Of course you do. You love Trent Ford.
Trent Ford, every Friday at the Ben Joravsky Show, we have the weather update, one of my favorite segments on the Friday Ben Joravsky, where Dennis plays another segment of Trent Ford. Illinois meteorologist. I don't know where he lives, but he's always enlightening and interesting points of view on the weather. So,
all right, everybody, that is our local news. Remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, and so much more. ChicagoReader.com and wherever else you download podcasts. This weekend's Benny J bonus interviews are up there. Our 2-year anniversary special. Go check it out. Mystery guests. Who are they? Oh, my God. Click, download, play, and you will find out. Also, you can find us online at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can always send us an email, like Stephen did, BennyJShow@gmail.com, and you can call the Ben Joravsky Show, 708-658-4788. That number again is 708-658-4788. We would love to hear from you. Okay, I guess we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, Joanna Klonsky will be joining us. It's the Ben Joravsky Show, live from my apartment in Ben's attic.
I'm not a perfect person.
That is correct. That is correct. That is correct.
On Wednesday, March 17th, the wait will be over. It's the Chicago Readers Best of Chicago Awards 2020. The polls are now closed, but you can still review the finalists and who won the Best of Chicago in 2019 at chicagoreader.com. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana, the Chicago Federation of Labor, and the Chicago Reader. Benny J, take it away.
Back in the old days, when I was on the radio before I was unceremoniously fired, and even in the early days of my podcast, I had a regular segment, The Creep Report with Joanna Klonsky. Not that Joanna Klonsky is a creep, but that Joanna Klonsky and I would break down the creepy behavior of weird politicians, elected officials. Oh my God, Joanna, we must have done a dozen segments like that. And I said the time had come to bring you back because the pile of politicians from both parties behaving creepily is growing larger by the day. So welcome back to the show, Joanna.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back with you.
Yeah, it's been a while. And Joanna Klonsky, political strategist, political operative in the city of Chicago. We may get into a little Lori Lightfoot talk near the end. Joanna's been known to disagree with me once or twice about my attitudes about Lori Lightfoot, but she's an old friend of mine, and I'm not throwing her under a bus. Anyway, all right, Joanna.
You don't want to be under the Jurovsky bus.
Say that again?
You don't want to be under the Jurovsky bus. That's a bad place to be.
Yeah, I don't really throw anybody under the bus anyway. I don't even have a bus. All right. So Andrew Cuomo is the primary person we should be talking about. The Democratic governor of New York City had emerged as a powerful force on the media in the early days of the pandemic with his regular updatings. He's become a hero to many people. I, as a lefty, had a lot of issues with Andrew Cuomo. Let's put those to the side for the moment. And let's just address the issues that have emerged in the last, what's it been, a couple weeks about Andrew Cuomo. Why don't you just introduce people to some of the allegations that have been raised?
Yeah, sure. So at this point, there's been, that we know of, 3 women who've come forward: Lindsay Boylan, Charlotte Bennett, and Anna Ruch. I might be saying her name wrong, who was the most recent. Lindsay Boylan and Charlotte Bennett are 2 former staffers of the governor. Anna Ruch is just a person who met him at a wedding. That's the one with the infamous photo now. I don't know. Did you see it, Ben? The picture?
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the most recent, in which she meets him at a wedding. He puts his hand on her back, on her bare skin. She said she felt uncomfortable. She said, I promptly removed his hand with my hand, which I would have thought was a clear enough indicator that I was not wanting him to touch me. Instead, according to the New York Times, Mr. Cuomo called her aggressive and placed his hands on her cheeks, her face cheeks. He said, can I kiss you? And she said I felt so uncomfortable and embarrassed that when really he is the one who should have been embarrassed. There's a photo of this that's circulating that I was referencing before, where somebody literally took a picture of this happening in real time, where he's got his hands on her face. It almost looks like they might be, near her neck. And you can just tell her she's massively uncomfortable, as you would be, a random strange man who you've never met before, touching you on your face, trying to kiss you, has already touched you on the small of your back, which is really kind of like a go-to creep move, by the way, Ben. Like, if you're ever in a bar, this probably has never happened to you, not to make assumptions, but very often you're in a bar, there's a guy trying to hit on you, the first thing he does is he puts his hand on the small of your back, and it's like one of those things that just sends a shiver up your spine. If it's unwanted, you're like, nope, do not touch me there. So the fact that was his go-to move to me was like biggest red flag in the whole wide world. Now these 2 other women, we've got Lindsay Boylan, who said she detailed a number of uncomfortable interactions with the governor, including he invited her to play strip poker on a government airplane. And there was an email that she got from another top aide suggesting that he thought she was a, quote, better looking sister of another woman. Charlotte Bennett is the staffer who he asked her a number of questions about her sex life, whether she was monogamous in her relationships, asked her whether she ever had sex with older men. I think she's 25. I don't know in what universe it could ever be appropriate for a boss to ask their staff member that, but certainly not a 60-something-year-old man asking a 25-year-old woman. Clearly, we have a massive power imbalance here. My thing, Ben, with these situations, in my experience, and for folks who don't know me, I've spent a lot of time consulting and advising survivors of sexual violence and misconduct over the last couple of years, sort of during this Me Too, I don't know what you call it, wave that we've had over the last couple of years. There's never just 1 or 2. It's just, no one ever just does something like this once and then never does it again. I would imagine that there are many more women right now who are sitting in their homes or their offices wondering, okay, should I tell my story? So we may see the drip, drip, drip continue over the weeks to come. But the question is, does it matter? Is it going to have an effect on Governor Cuomo's political career and future? Is anything going to change in the state of New York, in New York state government, in America, in the world, as a result of these stories? And, that's the thing that I think many of us have been grappling with.
All right, let me ask you this before we go in that direction to talk about what will happen and what should happen, and talk about also some of the other cases. It's not just Cuomo, and it's not just Democrats. And we'll also talk about one of my favorite aspects of this, Joanna, as you know, the difference reactions that Democrats have to allegations of sexual harassment as opposed to Republicans. But I'm going to ask you to go into the psyche of a 63-year-old man at this moment. So help me out here. When Mario, I apologize, I'm showing my baby boomer status. When Andrew Cuomo, son of Mario Cuomo, I apologize, Mario. When Andrew Cuomo made the moves on a 25-year-old woman, a 33-year-old woman, this was post Me Too, Joanna. This was in the last year. This is a guy who had nothing to gain from putting the moves on a 25-year-old woman or 33-year-old woman from a political standpoint, and everything to lose from it. And yet he did it. Please explain to me what's going in the mind of a 63-year-old governor of New York that he would behave like this, knowing full well the consequences that it could mean for his political career. Go ahead.
That's a really hard question. It's hard for me to put myself inside the mind of a man who does things like this. What's clear to me is that it's sometimes it's about sex. It's more often than not, it's about a combination of sex, but mostly it's about power. It's about feeling like you can do whatever the heck you want, and it's a way to assert that in every room that you're in. Every person that you interact with, you can do something to them and put them in a position where they either feel uncomfortable or, you're challenging them to play the game with you. I think that in many cases, when you have men in positions with this much power, they just aren't worried about it. They think they're invincible. They think they can do whatever they want. And for literal millennia, it was true. So some of those behaviors are really deeply ingrained. By the time you're a 63-year-old man who's risen through the ranks of power and had these sort of behaviors reinforced as being acceptable for decades of your life, even if you see some bad press over someone else, you may just think to yourself, that could never happen to me. In the same way that when you hear about a terrible accident happening to someone else, a piano falling out of the sky and falling on someone's head, you're not then well, I'm never going to walk down the street again because the piano may fall out of my head. I'm speculating. I can't relate, obviously. I can't relate.
Yeah, I would guess the analogy that when I was listening to you that popped into my mind is a Chicago politician taking a bribe.
Right.
And then getting caught on a wiretap doing it. Right. Knowing that we have 100 years of other Chicago politicians getting caught on taking bribes and going to prison and what have you, and whatever minuscule amount of money you got from that bribe relative to the loss of your career can't be worth it. But they're incapable.
Yes, it's not. I don't think it's a rational behavior, but that doesn't excuse it. If he wants to hold on, which I think he probably will. He's extremely arrogant, obviously. He's also quite popular still, although that's in a couple of weeks. And so he'll have to demonstrate some really significant behavioral and policy change in his office if he wants to hold on. To me, it's not clear yet that based on his statements and behavior in the last couple of days, it's not clear yet to me that he understands what he needs to do and why. Well, even his apology was, I thought, terrible.
It was, I don't even call it an apology.
Yeah.
It was, I didn't,
basically.
Yeah, I didn't do it. I won't do it again. And if someone was offended by it, I apologize, although I don't understand why anybody would be offended by it. That was essentially his apology.
It was a joke. Don't you have a sense of humor was the subtext.
Yeah. All right. So Michelle Goldberg wrote a column, which I sent to you, and I know you dutifully read. It was required reading. Michelle Goldberg is a columnist for the New York Times, and she posed a very interesting series of observations. And number one is that Democrats are sick and tired of punishing Democratic politicians for this kind of behavior. They feel as though they went too far with Al Franken, the senator from Minnesota, who lost he was eventually forced to step down from his Senate seat for allegations that are probably not as bad as the ones confronting Cuomo. So they're going to retreat from aggressively confronting folks like Cuomo. What was your response? What was your thoughts when you read Michelle Goldberg's?
Yeah, I've seen some of this on Twitter and on other spaces of people saying, I don't want to hear another word about Andrew Cuomo until Madison Cawthorn, who's the freshman Republican congressman who's also this week been accused of sexual misconduct. I don't want to hear another word about Andrew Cuomo until all of these Republican men who have done this and worse are held to account. I don't think that's a new undercurrent. I think there have always been voices in the Democratic Party who've pushed to not hold our own folks accountable in the fullest way possible. You can always sort of hide behind, well, like, why don't we hold Republicans to the same standards ourselves, and therefore we shouldn't hold ourselves to any standards. I think it's kind of a nonsense argument. If we start saying we're not going to hold ourselves accountable until Republicans are held accountable, then we might as well just give up on life, because those folks clearly have a different set of morals and standards and values than we do. If we were the same, then we wouldn't be having any conversation about this at all. I think, I've spoken on your show before about the fact that the folks who have pushed, who were most offended by holding Al Franken accountable for what he did, I think generally have not been interested in having a real reckoning with this moment of Me Too and the experiences of women and other people who've been victimized in the workplace. If we're not going to hold our own folks to a high standard, then what do we stand for at all? That's my take on it. Now, should Madison Cawthorn be held accountable too? Yes, of course. Everybody should be held accountable for their behavior. Nothing's ever going to change, period. It shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Well, since you mentioned Madison Cawthorn, why don't you go into it? Madison Cawthorn is a newly elected 25-year-old Republican congressman from North Carolina, and he's really to the far to the right, MAGA hat wearer, and proud of it. And what are the allegations against him? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Madison Cawthorn, who's just one of those people who, like, even when you hear his name, you know there's a problem. He's 25 years old, freshman Republican congressman from North Carolina. BuzzFeed this week published a long piece where they interviewed, I believe, 36 plus people. Instances of sexual harassment related to Cawthorn while he was on campus at Patrick Henry College, which is a small Christian campus in Northern Virginia. Now, because the guy's 25 years old, he wasn't in college all that long ago. This is 2016 we're talking about here. Ben, I was already coming on your friggin' radio show in 2016, I'm sure. This really wasn't very long ago. Yeah. It seems like a lot of the stories relate to him taking women on what he would call, quote, fun drives off campus, where he would drive recklessly and sort of interrogate the woman in the passenger seat about their virginity and sexual experiences while they're locked in this moving vehicle where he's driving recklessly. So there's a lot of these kind of stories. I encourage folks to go read it. It's a very, very long piece. And Patrick Henry College is a place where, it's, like I said, it's a very religious school. And so some of the women detail how thrown off they were by this kind of overtly aggressive sexual behavior in a place where many of them come from very deeply held religious backgrounds and values. Am I surprised? No. Is he going to be held accountable by his own party? I would not recommend that anyone hold their breath. I think it's just another example. Also, this guy is like, I would say he's part of the new Marjorie Taylor Greene club of really far out there folks who just, these are people who are on a whole nother level of not unaccountability. What I thought was most interesting about Madison Cawthorn, oh no, actually, gosh, there's so many of these stories this week that I'm mixing them up with the other case this week, which happened in North Dakota.
Yeah.
So maybe
State
I should
rep.
jump into that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, state rep. This guy, whose name is Luke Simons, Republican, I wouldn't expect anybody to be familiar with a random state representative from North Dakota, perpetual sexual harasser, harassed one of his fellow state reps so badly that she eventually moved her seat on the floor. But what I thought was most interesting about this Simons guy is that he compared himself to Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Here we are, full circle after a couple of years. Yep. We're still seeing these same tropes being relived again and again.
Well, okay, so let's get into that. I was going to raise that point, and this gets into the contrasting attitudes or reaction or responses Republicans have with Democrats. So Andrew Cuomo is caught in an obvious series of incidents of sexual harassment, and the way he gets around it is to show that he's very concerned, that he's woke on this issue, but that he didn't do it. It's not fair to him. Okay, but he calls for an investigation. I respect. Of course, he wanted his own person to do the investigation, but that's like that's a typical Democratic response. Okay, old boy Simons from the state rep from North Dakota. What does he do? He goes on the counterattack. He says it's made up. He doesn't even bother with it. He goes, I am the victim.
Right.
I'm the victim. This is all part of woke culture and cancel culture and Me Too. Yeah, and I'm the next. It's just like with Brett Kavanaugh. I'm like, yeah. In Brett Kavanaugh's case, there was a woman who went forward in front of the whole country and testified what she says you did. So yeah, it's not a good thing. It's not like, you get what I'm saying? Or some baseless, made up fantasy about Brett Kavanaugh. A woman testified publicly as to what he did. But see how the Republicans do it? They've turned themselves into a victim. Go ahead.
Right, but I think that what's important here for me is at the time when Brett Kavanaugh was being concerned, many of us were saying, if this man can be confirmed, despite these very strong substantiated allegations, despite Christine Blasey Ford's, very compelling testimony, it will send a message to men everywhere that there is no accountability to be had. Do what you will. It's never going to hurt you. And I think that's certainly been internalized on the Republican side, but I think to some degree it's been internalized by everyone, whether or not they're articulating it to themselves in this way. That moment was sent such a powerful message to men and to abusers everywhere that you will never truly be. If this man at this level and President Trump, who, God, I mean, how many rape allegations exist against him to this day, aren't held accountable ever meaningfully, then no one ever will be. And so this is a little bit of a blip. These women are complaining. Carry on as you were and don't worry too much about it.
Well, it's detrimental for Democratic politicians to carry on with that behavior, as we're seeing with Andrew Cuomo. I've yet to see any evidence that a Republican official has been punished for it. Brett Kavanaugh is now in the Supreme Court. Madison Cawthorn is still in Congress. I suspect he won't be punished. Donald John Trump is still being lionized by MAGA. By the way, he may get his time in court on this issue. A case that I am obsessively following from afar. E.G. Carroll still has a lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit against. Yeah. So go, Ms. Carroll. But I see your larger. See, when I look at Andrew Cuomo's behavior, that's why I asked you to put yourself in a psyche. I think he thinks he's just above it all, and that he's in that moment, or he thinks he's so enamored with himself. Follow me on this one, Joanna. That he thinks whatever woman he's coming on to is just going to be wowed and would never complain about it. You know what I mean? Because he's just like full of himself. And Go ahead. So I don't even think he's even thinking of a public consequence for his behavior. Go ahead.
I think that's probably right. I think that there is culturally sort of a style of engagement that I have personally experienced in politics in particular, of men of a certain age who sort of toe the line, push the limits. They're joking. I think in their mind, it's being sort of like edgy and charming. And some women take it that way, probably, perhaps. I don't know. But the power dynamic is the game changer. So if he's interacting that way with someone who is his peer and for whom he's not in charge, it's pretty hard when you're governor because no one's really your peer. But if there's I suppose a different man who's in a different role who's interacting with someone who's their peer and using that, making those sort of edgy, borderline sexual jokes and asking sexual questions, that's a different case. He's the governor of the state. He's talking to his employees. He's talking to women far younger than him. He's talking to people far younger than him. And so innately, every interaction he has with them, there's a power dynamic that's at play. And he knows that. Andrew Cuomo was not stupid. He's a very smart person.
Well, he may be smart, but in these particular instances, he behaved really stupidly, and now his political career is in jeopardy. There will be an investigation. I don't know where it's going. I read Michelle Goldberg's column, as did you, and she quoted polls that show 80% of Democrats still support him. Now, this is before these polls were taken before many of these allegations came out, and so if there's hearings and public testimony, we'll obviously see that support erode. And then you're right, you'll get into that situation where it'll be like Democrats rallying to him. And listen, I'm guilty of this as much as anybody else, Joanna. I'm going to just openly admit this. It's like, it is so blatant, the different way in which Republicans treat these kinds of issues and the way Democrats treat them. Again, this state rep, Simmons, is going on the offensive in North Dakota, and he's claiming that he's being treated like Brett Kavanaugh, which is like he's acting like he's a victim. That's how Republicans deal with this. Democrats take it more seriously. So I do struggle with that. I understand that. And but I mean, politically speaking, it's a Democratic state. I'd rather Andrew Cuomo have to step down, and then the lieutenant governor, who's a Democrat, take over, than have to.
The Senator Smith, who took over for Al Franken, she's fine. What's the problem?
No problem.
He's not groping people, as far as I know. I mean, I'm sure that somebody else, I'm sure there's another Democrat who could take over as governor who would do a completely fine job. And I know there's a lot of talent in New York State. That being said, look, I don't think it's likely that he will step down unless far more information comes out. I think the allegations that he was juking the stats on nursing home deaths, in combination with this, could really harm his poll numbers. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring this issue closer to home and talk about your friend Alaina Hampton. It was about 4 years ago, I want to say, that she went public with her story of being harassed by another political operative at the time for Michael Joseph Madigan. You came on the show and talked about it. Alaina Hampton came on the show and talked about it. I think the last time you were actually on the show, you may have been with Alaina Hampton. And I've just watched the story of Michael Joseph Madigan and his power just sort of erodes bit by bit ever since then. Obviously, he has other issues besides Alaina Hampton's allegations against I'll forget old boy's name, the other operative,
Kevin Quinn.
Thank you. Boy, I knew you would know that name. Brother of Marty Quinn. And so obviously he's had other problems, but man, Joanna, think about it. Think about the change. When Alaina went public and came on the show, and Michael Joseph Madigan was at just the peak of his power. head of the Democratic Party, Speaker of the House, the leader of the Dems, for fighting Rauner. I was singing his praise. Even me, who I've been fighting him for all these years in Chicago. I was like, hey, he stood up against Rauner. And now look at it. Joanna, you got to reflect on the changes that have occurred in these last 2 years since Elena, or 3 years since Elena went public with her story.
You said that, and ever since you said 4 years, I'm like, what is the timeline of the last couple of years? My sense of time is all thrown off, I guess, because of COVID and Trump. But yes, it was early 2018 when she came forward. So it was in the middle of the Democratic primary, I recall. So
3 years, wow.
February or March, yeah, so 3 years. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think the power and impact of her coming forward, which I think has implications for the last part of our conversation too. Her coming forward had an impact in ways that I think she never. I don't want to speak for her, but I would imagine she never dreamed it would either. For example, revelations came out related to the FBI's ComEd investigation that pertained to Elena. And I don't think people sort of remember this, but remember there's a list of lobbyists who were asked to give her harasser money, Kevin Quinn money. That all became part of the Madigan/ComEd investigation because he had been fired / quit because of what happened. He was unable to supposedly support himself. And so all of these lobbyists for ComEd, who were the favored lobbyists of Madigan's crew, were asked, hey, can you basically help this guy out and give him money? This all comes out in the Chicago Tribune. So by her stepping forward, I think it exposed all sorts of issues that she never meant to expose. She was just trying to speak to her truth and make sure that she wanted the bad thing to stop happening to her, and she wanted to make sure that it didn't happen to anyone else. But in the process, all of these other dominoes started to fall. And I think that's the value in coming forward and speaking your truth that we've seen happen in other places as well. In my experience working with other victims and survivors, very often you come forward with the narrow goal of just telling your own story. And in the process, you secondarily create space for other people to come forward and perhaps tell an even more shocking story or expose something else, or you expose some political corruption. So these things tend to have sort of like strange concentric circles of impact. And I think that was certainly the case with Elena.
And the final step was, of course, Madigan stepping down in his house from his house seat, and the debacle that occurred. We had a lot of fun with this story over the last week, as you can imagine, Joanna, where his handpicked successor had to quit after 3 days. I just always like pointing this out. Madigan was the state rep for 50 years. His successor lasted 3 days. I think the successor to the successor has now lasted longer than the successor, I believe. So just general thoughts on that, the handoff, and what's going on there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so a friend of mine said, and I think I said this to you, Ben, before the show, if someone had told me to write imagine a fictionalized ending to the Madigan era, and I had written it the way that it played out, you would have said to me, Joanna, come on, write something believable. That's completely stupid, too far-fetched. So the fact that this happened in this way, I almost am at a loss for words about it, frankly. But this young man apparently has some pretty serious Me Too allegations against him, the details of which have not been stated publicly by the victims of the survivors of those incidents. And so I won't share their stories without them. But it sounds like a pretty serious thing that apparently they didn't. I don't know if they vetted him and just didn't see it or didn't find out about it, or if they just didn't bother to vet him because he was part of the crew. He was part of the club. He was coming up through the 13th Ward organization. He was being mentored, and here we are. There is clearly a culture around that space that we've seen bubble up again and again that has not thoroughly and appropriately been addressed even now. And so hopefully this will be another opportunity for these problems to be addressed. I'm glad that that Mr. Kodat stepped down. It seemed like it would have been really problematic for him to hold that seat, but mostly it was a bad PR day for them. And so we've got to get to a place where people are interested in confronting these problems, not just because of bad PR, but because it's actually the right thing to do. We're not there.
Well, yet. We're far removed from that. And I'll just say this, the same point I made at the outset with Andrew Cuomo, the same point I made, that this dude, Andrew Cuomo, 2 years after Al Franken, would be pawing 25-year-old women at cocktail parties and think he can get away with it. It just shows you it's like serious denial going on in people's minds. And Michael Joseph Madigan's political organization, that they would not have vet a guy, even though his own political downfall was, to a degree, precipitated by sexual harassment by one operative to another operative. It just shows that nobody... By
the way, I mean, we also know that the previous executive director of the Democratic Party of Illinois, Tim Mates, was forced to resign after sexual harassment allegations about him came out. This is a pattern. It's a series. It's a culture. It's not just, okay, one guy with issues who couldn't keep it together. This is a cultural issue in an organization, and that's what needs to be addressed.
All right. And I can't leave this without, I forgot to mention this before. Part of the Michelle Goldberg piece raised a point that I hadn't thought of. And I get your reaction to this. And that is that the person who paid the greatest price politically for the Al Franken fallout, aside from Al Franken, of course, had to step down, was Kirsten Gillibrand, the senator from New York, who ran, seems like centuries ago, in the Democratic primary of 2019 for president. She would never crack my top 5, Joanna. I just got to confess that to you. I don't think she ever cracked my top 10, but whatever, it doesn't matter. There were a lot of candidates, a lot of competitors for that top 10. I used to keep track. But actually, usually made it to 5, and then I just couldn't even have anybody. But Michelle Goldberg made a very compelling point that Gillibrand has paid a greater price because she called immediately for Al Franken to step down, and now people kind of blame her for leading to Al Franken's political demise. Your thoughts on that observation that Michelle Goldberg made? Go ahead.
I think that's right. She certainly paid a political price. There was a lot of buzz at the time about donors abandoning her and people being enraged with her. Look, she stood on her values and she did what she thought she needed to do. And I think what we've seen a lot of cases like this. I would point to Kelly Cassidy in Illinois, who's experienced something similar to her in some cases, who's been willing to stand with victims and has been, as a result, had some negative impacts for herself politically. Kirsten Gillibrand, I've seen in the last 48 hours people attacking her saying, "Where's Kirsten Gillibrand? I guess she's going to stay quiet this time around." So I saw that now she has joined the call for an investigation along with AOC and Chuck Schumer and others. So it should never be the focus on the person who's seeking accountability for a colleague. It should not be the person who is being targeted and punished. And I think we've seen that happen too often, and it's sort of part of this pattern that we've seen play out again and again.
Yeah, I think it's a little unfair. Again, she was never even in my top 10, so it's not like she's my political idol, but I think it is a little unfair that she's the one who's...
race all that long, was she?
I believe, no, she was not in the race that long. I believe she was in at least two debates, because we used to have... It was one of my favorite segments in the summer of 2019, if I could get wax nostalgic about the pre-pandemic moment. We used to bring on all kinds of observers, really smart people to talk about the debates and analyze the debates and like who was up and who was down. And I remember thinking that she didn't do well in this one particular debate, that she was trying too hard to be a progressive. She didn't start off from a progressive spot. She was like to the right of Hillary Clinton. So it's kind of hard to position yourself as a progressive when you're coming from that. So she was never one of my favorites, but I do think it's really unfair that she would be treated this way. All right, let's move on to the current fight to replace Michael Joseph Madigan as chairman of the Democratic Party of the state of Illinois, 2 candidates, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, Alderwoman Michelle Harris of the 8th Ward.
Which,
Are your thoughts about
pause
this?
for a minute? If I had told you a couple of years ago that Michael J. Madigan, or even 6 months ago, by the way, some people were still sort of in Stockholm Syndrome land, that he would never, there's no way he would ever, the world would not continue to spin. There's no way he would ever step down willingly. This is all mania. You're insane. Okay, so it was time. He stepped down. He's moving on. But I just want to take a minute to acknowledge that, because it was so hard for so many people to wrap their minds around the concept that there would be a time in which he was not continuing to control the state party and the House.
Yeah, this is a general moment for people in Chicago and Illinois. They're dealing with a lot of this wrenching change. I mean, just think about the last 10 years. Many Chicagoans could not get their mind around the fact that Daley would no longer be mayor. In fact, as I said to you earlier today, if he were on the ballot today, he'd still be getting elected mayor. There's no doubt in my mind. Many people can't get over the fact that Ed Burke is no longer chair of the finance committee, the most powerful person in the Chicago City Council. He's gone as chair of the finance committee. He's still a very powerful force for reform in the Chicago City Council. No. That's just a little joke there, Joanna. So who, I mean, just think about the changes that have happened in Illinois. And I will say this about Democrats, my beloved Democratic Party, which I'm usually mad at. They deal with change better than the Republicans have been dealing with change. Donald Trump gets trounced in the election, and the cultists in the Republican Party won't even acknowledge that he lost, Joanna.
Still,
they still yeah, and he's their guy, you know, and yeah, and they control the Republican Party right now. The man we call AK-16, Adam Kinzinger, is. Are
we giving them cute nicknames? Do we have to? Come on now. I'm not ready for that.
That's because there was a basketball player, AK-47. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's trying to create a career out of doing what every Republican in the country should be doing, distancing themselves from a lunatic. And that's how bad. So I give the Democrats credit. Democrats dealt with the loss of Michael Madigan. You're right. It's unthinkable 2 years ago that this would be, but they dealt with, you don't see Democrats from the Southwest side besieging the state capitol saying, stop the steal. You don't see Marty Quinn leading an insurrection at the Chicago City Council. I want to recount. You know, they go, boss, it's over. You got to leave. And he leaves.
I don't know if anybody said to him, boss, it's over, you got to leave. It doesn't seem like there were a lot of people saying, hey, no to the speaker over the years. But he saw, I think to his credit, he saw that the moment had come and he did what he needed to do.
There were 18 out of 60 who said no to Michael Madigan as Speaker of the House. 18 Dems out of 60. I'm not good at math. I barely passed algebra at Evanston High School, but I know that's a higher percentage of Democrats who said no to Michael Joseph Madigan than Republicans who said no to Donald Trump. And
yeah, but nobody would have believed you. If I had told you 6 months ago that 19 Democrats voted against the speaker or were prepared to vote against the speaker, you would have told me I was insane. I mean, a lot of this was unheard of and unimaginable, even for the most progressive figures in the Democratic Party.
Point well taken. It wasn't unimagined, but once it happened, it was over. And so now we have the aftermath, trying to decide who replaces him as party chair. What's your sense of the pros and cons of Robin Kelly and Michelle Harris?
Well, look, this is such an interesting situation. We've got, much like the mayoral runoff in 2019, we've got a situation where either way, no matter who wins, you're going to have a Black woman leading the Democratic Party for the first time ever, which is really something. Michelle Harris, who is the alderman of the the alderman of the 8th Ward, chairman of the Rules Committee, the mayor's floor leader. She leads the sort of storied ward organization of the 8th Ward, which is one of the most powerful Black ward organizations that still exist. And she has the support of Governor Pritzker as well as Senator Duckworth and some other leaders. And then on the other hand, you have Congresswoman Robin Kelly, supported by Senator Durbin, as well as many other leaders on her part, who's really been a great progressive congresswoman. And so they're fighting it out. Many people are presenting this as sort of a proxy war between powerful white men who are trying to treat these women as marionettes. I have had a hard time with that presentation of the storyline. I think they're both bold. They're both tough. I don't think they're going to be pushed around that easily. But yes, they also both each of them has the backing of a powerful white male statewide elected official. And so naturally people have to note that. And I think it's a tricky dynamic that we're dealing with here in this situation.
I stated this at the start of the show before you came on, and I'd love to get your response to it. And I'm not taking sides. I'm not saying it for Robin Kelly or Michelle Harris. It's like, I just don't want to take a side in this one. It's just neither one of them is.
You don't get a vote. This is
I know I don't have a vote anyway, and it's not one that I love so much more than the other. So I don't want to take a side. I just want to point out something out that I find. I may have mentioned this to you, but babbling this all day. Like, why do people think it's a good idea to put us at the chair of the Democratic Party, a Chicago alderwoman? And I may have said this to you, that nothing against Chicago alderwomen and aldermen. I love them dearly. Many of them come on my show all the time. But they're not as loved as much by people outside of my show. You know what I'm saying? I'm not thinking like, what makes you think that having an alderwoman from Chicago would work well in Carbondale or Clay County? Or please help me on that one.
A lot of people are asking that question, and I think that, so first of all, as a reminder to your listeners, the only people who get a vote on this, I think the number's 36, correct me if I'm remembering that wrong. There's 36 people called State Central Committeemen, and those 36 people are the ones who decide this. None of us, unless you've become a State Central Committeeman recently, Ben, have a vote in this question. And so it's really about how does that dynamic, being a Chicago alderman, who, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but who has very much historically been a part of the establishment. You know, she's not a DSA member or anything like that. She's the chair. She's the floor leader. She's the chair of the Rules Committee. How does that factor for some of the people in the Collier counties or downstate? That being said, she's garnered quite a bit of support in those spaces, and I think that her having the backing of the folks who she is supported by, including the governor, has been very helpful to those people in terms of, some of the people who may have had hesitancy over that may have been able to get past it because, well, I don't know her, but I know this person, I know that person who's supporting her. I don't know. It's a very close race. It's going to come right down to the wire. Even now, I don't think, unless something's broken in the last 46 minutes since I've been sitting here with you, it's nowhere close to being decided. The vote's tomorrow night. So next time I come on, we can unpack what really happened.
Wow.
These committeemen, they're not necessarily people you even have ever heard of in your life.
No, that's true. And it's also true, I do not get a vote in it, but that has not stopped me. I don't get a vote on a lot of things, Joanna, but it doesn't stop.
You haven't picked one of them or the other, though. That's not like you.
Wait, neither one of them is like in my universe. You know what I'm saying? So Michelle Harris, oh my God, I remember when she was working for John Stroger at the county board. I remember her. I remember where she sat at the board meetings, and I watched as she was elevated. She got to be eventually the alderwoman of the 8th Ward. And, I have really mixed feelings about the 8th Ward, if I could use you as my therapist. On one hand, the alderman of the 8th Ward traditionally was on the side of whatever dumb idea I was really opposing that the mayor was putting out that I opposed. But on the other hand, I've always had this love for John Stroger, which is really weird. And he was an old machine guy, but I always viewed it this way, Joanna. This is before you were working strategist in this town. You were in college, etc. But Richie Daley was given all this credit by powerful people in Chicago at healing racial wounds left over from Harold Washington, which I always had a hard time with that because it's like blaming Harold Washington. But the way he healed those racial wounds was to make sure that John Stroger got to control patronage at the county level. And in other words, make sure that black people were cut a piece of the pie. And so all these white liberals would be blasting John Stroger for doling out patronage at the county while extolling the virtues of Richie Daley for winning racial peace in Chicago. And I'm like, you can't have it you can't have it both ways, white liberals. You gotta,
Wait a minute, Ben. Are you saying that white liberals can be hypocritical sometimes?
Can be. I would take can be out of that sentence. Just go are hypocritical. So I don't have that knee jerk. I went on that whole riff, Joanna. I apologize. I don't have that knee jerk reaction against the 8th Ward that a lot of people have. That said, I don't know if it's a good idea to put a Chicago alderman in charge of the Democratic Party.
Let me say this about it, because I've been thinking a lot about where do I stand on this issue and do I even care? And I have to be honest and say, I can't really think of anything in my career, which I've had a lot of adventures in Democratic Party politics over the course of my career. I can't really point to any moment where who the chair of the Democratic Party of Illinois was had any impact on my life in any meaningful way. That being said, I was very glad to see the speaker step down. I was very glad to see this moment for new leadership, for a woman of color to take the reins. I think it's a powerful statement. I think we haven't really had a party in Illinois before. There was no way to sign up and join or feel like you're a part of something. It's not like they were cultivating and training young leaders and volunteers. I think in the last couple of years, they've set up some stuff like that to their credit, but it's not like a powerful feeling of being a part of something. And so I think we have a moment now where we can start to look towards that. And I'm excited about that possibility. Which one of these two women is going to create that space? They both, so much of this has been so insular and so insidery, and that's because it's a decision to be made by insiders, that there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for them to speak to what's their vision? What are they going to actually do? How are they going to open this thing up so that you don't have to be connected or have a certain last name or work for someone who has a certain last name in order to get plugged in and get active in your community and your party?
That is a great point. And I remember my good friend Lenny put something on Facebook. She's an activist on the north side of Chicago, comes on the show from time to time from Indivisible. And she said, how do I join the Democratic Party? And the fact that an activist on the north side of Chicago who's really involved and very committed would say, how do I join the Democratic Party is sort of underscoring the point you just made, that the Democratic Party, my beloved Democratic Party of Illinois in this case, has been kind of insular under Michael Joseph Madigan's reign, sort of following the model that he set up in the 13th Ward that didn't really work out so well in the long run. And I think
a lot of years for him.
For him, yes, that's the key point, the for him part of that sentence. So I'm hoping that the Dems take the opportunity to sort of rethink the model. No matter who wins this election, right. And whoever wins this election is not going to be doing the day-to-day. Anyway, that. They have day jobs. One is an alderwoman, the other is a congresswoman, so they have pretty busy day jobs. So let's hope the Democratic Party can take this as an opportunity.
Yeah, and let's hope that this fracture that we've seen around this race, that it seems to be a fracture about, I'm not sure if it's really, it's not an ideological fracture. It seems like a thing where everybody can come back together at the end and unite and start to build. Because going into the next cycle, we really can't have a divided Democratic Party leadership in the state. We've we've got very serious challenges ahead coming down the pipe. So
Yeah, and we'll probably hold that off. That's a larger discussion. J.B. Pritzker, is he in trouble in 2022? I've already gone on the record saying he's going to win re-election, which is probably the kiss of death for poor J.B. Pritzker's campaign. But I just don't see the Republicans coming out of this. All right, we're going to close down with this. I'm going to give you a chance to take a shot at me. I wrote a column last week that I know you weren't happy with. I know I've been hearing from a lot of my friends of the Lori Lightfoot persuasion, and there's some out there, how unfair I was to the mayor. I didn't think I was that unfair to her in the column at all, but it was a column about the budget process and Ed Burke's role, former chairman of the finance committee. All of a sudden, Ed Burke has found his inner Marty Oberman, his inner Scotty Wagasback, and has become a reformer. So in closing, Joanna, just wail away. Take your thoughts on the column and the notion that Ed Burke is a champion of reform in this Chicago.
Oh, no, Ben, I honestly, I was just concerned. I was worried, have you did you hit your head? Are you okay? Do you need a medical professional? Do you want me to call an ambulance? I know that's, have you been kidnapped? Are you? I don't know. I thought maybe they applied your byline to someone else's story or something happened. I don't know what's going on over at the Reader these days, but are you okay, Ben? That's my question. Are you all right?
I am okay. And
you're going to the next Ed Burke fundraiser. I heard that a lot of people say that.
I don't think I'll be going to any Ed Burke
Wear a mask
fundraiser.
if you go, please. Just
Yes. All right. I guess that'll
Okay,
that bit of sarcasm.
I'm just obviously love you, Ben. Just kidding around. But.
All right, very good. That's the great Joanna Klonsky, everyone. And I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been too long. We're going to bring you back probably next month to talk about the decision the Democrats have made. And also we're keeping an eye on what New York is doing with their great governor, in quotes. Let's just switch right now. Let's put Christian Gillibrand in as governor and have Andrew Cuomo have a talk show with his brother on CNN and call it a day. All right, Joanna?
With you. Thank you both, guys. Great to be here.
All right. That's Joanna Klonsky. What's up, D? Got any updates before we head out that door?
Nothing much. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good, but there's something frozen about you right now.
Really? How about now?
You're still frozen, but I hear you, so it's all good.
I'm
But
dancing.
You're frozen.
I'm dancing right now. Can you see me dancing, or am I frozen?
You're frozen.
Oh, wow.
It's like this image of you looking pensive. Ooh.
Ooh.
Anyway, any updates before we head out that door?
Yeah, sure do. Let's do the back half. And we got all wrapped up in the statewide news in the beginning of our program. We never got to the news in the city of Chicago. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times, Stefano Esposito and Nadir Issa. Monday, March 1st, 2021 at 5:29 p.m. The headline reads, "Excitement, Tears, and Masks as CPS students head back to school for the first time during pandemic." Now, this article does a great job of highlighting the first day back from all sorts of perspectives, the parents, the teachers, and, of course, the mayor and her Chicago public school staff. And to save us all some time, we're just going to get right to it and only cover the back-to-school day for our Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot. Wait, actually, before we do this, let me double-check. Make sure Joanna is, in fact, off of the Google meeting. Let me look here. Okay. She's off. All right. Good. All right.
By the way, let me just say this. I've been getting so much grief from Lori Lightfoot supporters along the lines what Joanna did. Ben, you love Ed Burke. Ben. Anyway, I guess if you give it out, you got to take it, D. Go ahead.
And if you get it out, you got to take it. That's very true.
Thank God. Science is back, baby.
All right, here we go. Mayor Lori Lightfoot and schools chief Janice Jackson kicked off the day with a visit to Hawthorne Scholastic Academy, a magnet elementary school in Lakeview, north side. They struck a celebratory tone. Celebratory tone. I can talk. They struck a celebratory tone, happy to have reached a milestone they've long awaited. And yes, now I have quotes. Mayor Lori Lightfoot quotes. Let me just triple check real quick to make sure Joanna is not on here. Okay. She's in fact not on the live stream. Okay, great. Let's do some quotes. Quotes from Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Mayor Lori Lightfoot said about the return to school, quote, This morning, I was lucky enough once again to experience firsthand the infectious excitement of our young people on their first day of class. Driving here this morning, I saw young kids skipping ahead of their parents with excitement about coming back to school. When schools closed a year ago, none of us thought it would be yet another year. We thought and hoped it would be weeks. Then we thought it'd be months. Then we thought surely by the start of the school year it would be back. But fate had another plan.
All right. She was with Janice Jackson. Listen, I can't quibble with anything she said. It's a great thing when school reopens and kids are excited when they go to school. Even I was excited when I went back to school. But of course, after the first day, I was like, I gotta do this again. But I don't know. You know, would it have been great that if like they had Jesse Sharkey with them? How about that? Oh, Ben, you live in a fantasy world. Wouldn't that have been nice?
Or not force it and just kind of let it be natural. We had these snow days going on and everything. I bet we probably all would have come to the same conclusion, right? By about this time.
Yeah. What conclusion would we have come to?
Time to go back to school.
Yeah, time to go back to school. I'm just saying that, it would have been really nice. Hey, have Jesse there. Show solidarity with the teachers. Whatever. That's Chicago. I started this show by talking about the weird ways we have in Chicago, and we're going to close it by talking about the weird people in Chicago love a good political fight. So,
hey, how about some quotes?
By the way, I got to give a shout. I got an update.
Shout it out.
Can we give a shout out to Bill Horberg?
Hey, Bill.
Chicago Bill, producer of The Queen's Gambit, won a Golden Globe. And his proud mom, Joan, who's a listener to this show. Joan, congratulations to your son. That's excellent.
Wait a minute. We had him on the show. So you're saying we have a Golden Globe award-winning producer on our show?
Yes, we did.
Oh, my God.
And we should probably, I should get it together. Dennis showed me how to rerun. He showed me, he took it step by step. Okay, Ben. He was very patient with me. This is step one. And I wrote it down. So I could
no one knows what you're talking about right now. You're very inside baseball right now. But yeah, we will.
The fourth and fifth walls. Yes. So anyway, Bill Horberg, who was a guest on the show, he's a bonus guest several months ago. Congratulations. That's really cool. He won a Golden Globe, and he deserved it. Queen's Gambit was excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So congratulations, Chicago Bill.
Hey, Chicago Bill, congratulations. Go check out our interview with Bill Horberg, the feller that directed Queen's Gambit and got an award for it. Oh, produced, directed. It's all the same to us peons out here. All right, so let's move on here to, hey, I have quotes from Janice Jackson. How about that, huh? Sound good? No, you got a phone call. All right, let's hear some quotes from Janice Jackson here. Janice Jackson said she felt, quote, a little overwhelmed with joy hearing children laughing and back in schools and hope to recapture the magic in our classrooms. This is the first step on the road toward normalcy, whatever the new normal will be. We are going into the recovery phase, and this is a very important phase, not just for the city as a whole, but more importantly, for our children and their future.
We're not getting to that normalcy unless we do a better job with the vaccines. Just saying. Just saying. I'm really happy the school's back. Kids are happy. Teachers happy. Janice Jackson's happy. Learn Life is happy. Got to get that vaccine, D. We're not going any normal.
Oh, hell no.
Okay? The bowling league started again. I'm not bowling, but my buddies came by last night. We're all hanging around on my front porch at midnight, talking about basketball, my beloved Bulls, having a great time, wearing our masks, socially distanced. This is not normal. So we're not quite there yet. Got to get the vaccines. Heck of a job with the vaccines, America. Come on, we can do a little bit better.
All right. And finally, an early lead for Illinois' absolute worst couple of the year. The uber right-wing and disturbingly anti-Semitic lovebirds, Chris and Mary Miller. Ben, they're in love, all right? They're in love. They love each other. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times, and Andrew Sullender. Illinois House Democrats introduced a resolution Monday condemning Republican State Rep Chris Miller for slapping a decal with the logo of a far-right anti-government militia group on his pickup truck and accusing him of helping incite the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. State Representative Bob Morgan, Democrat of Deerfield, the original sponsor of the resolution, called Miller's actions, quote, garbage and disqualifying for a member of the Illinois House. Miller came under scrutiny last week after his truck was spotted in Washington, D.C. on the day of the rioting.
Yeah. I've talked about this. I wrote about this. Mary Miller, the congresswoman from downstate Illinois, was the one who said Hitler was great. Her husband, Chris Miller, was the one who showed up at the MAGA rally, Trump's MAGA rally on January 6th, right before the storming of the Capitol. Republican Party has to address this. You know, that Mary Miller's apology was absolutely ridiculous, almost as bad as John Canizera's. Republicans are not confronting. They're not confronting the full consequences of the rhetoric that their leaders have been uttering. Instead, they generally go on the counterattack. And they make themselves be victims. We were just talking about this with Joanna. Their response to accusations of sexual harassment, they're the victims. So when they say something that's truly obnoxious and cruel, like Hitler was right, that came out of Mary Miller's mouth, it takes forever for her to apologize, and then she kind of turns herself into the victim. Same thing with Chris Miller. His explanation about the decal on the truck is absolutely ridiculous and absurd. And by the way, where's our good friend Jim Durkin on this one? Come on out, Jim. Come on. Where's Big DB, the front runner, Darren Bailey, State Senator Darren Bailey, who's probably going to be the Republican nominee for governor? Where's he on this one?
That is correct.
The only guy who will speak out on this stuff is Adam Kinzinger. One Republican in the whole state. What a worthless political party, D. I have to say it. Worthless political party. Spent all my time. It's like I don't even know what to say about him anymore. Mary Miller's apology, you can go read the column I wrote about it, was worthless. Worthless apology regarding her statement that Hitler was right. What was it even in her mind that would get her to utter those words? And then at roughly the same time, a day or two later, her husband was at the MAGA rally. So, I don't know. Republicans got to look themselves, but I don't think they will do it, D. They're doubling down. Donald Trump was at CPAC this weekend. He says, I'm coming after you, Liz Cheney. I'm coming after you, Adam Kinzinger. I'm coming after you, Mitt Romney. And the crowd cheering. So the people who took a stand against Trump are the ones being treated as pariah, and Trump is being treated as the great champion. Donald Trump say anything about Mary Miller in her comments? No, I don't think so. So the Republican Party is just so worthless right now, D. It's hard to take them serious, and yet they're 40% of the population, and yet there's a chance that a Republican could defeat J.B. Pritzker. That's what Joanna was suggesting at the tail end of that conversation. So you have to take them seriously because they're so frightening. So yeah, the political lovebirds, Chris and Mary Miller. That's the best the Republicans can do from downstate Illinois.
And, I heard what you said and all that, but they have a picture on at the Chicago Sun-Times right now. Boy, they look cute. They're in love. Well, Chris and Mary Miller.
Let me look. Hold on. Here we go.
Chris has got his MAGA hat on, sitting there.
Yes, he does. He looks a little like Dennis Quaid. Yeah, looks a little like Dennis Quaid. They got the MAGA hat, the flag flying in the back. It's funny but it's the American flag, not the Trump flag. Remember right after Trump gave his speech, MAGA stormed the Capitol, took down the American flag, put up a Trump flag. So at least the Millers are still flying the American flag.
Absolutely. And that is your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, March 2nd. Remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, and so much more at chicagoreader.com and wherever else you download podcasts. Check out this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews featuring our 2-year anniversary special. That's right. I just randomly call people. Ben had no clue who was going to be on the line. It was a good time. Go check out that episode. Find out who our mystery guests were. You can find us online at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can always send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. Leave your name and where you're from if you'd like us to read your email on the air. Shout out to Steven. Thanks for the email, man. Glad we can read it on today's show. You can call the Ben Joravsky Show. It's true. We have a phone number, 708-658-4788. The number again, 708-658-4788. We would love to hear from you. And remember, you can become a Benhead. That's right. That's what we're calling fans of this show, Benheads. For more information on how to become a Benhead, go to chicagoreader.com/Joravsky, JORAV as in victory, SKY. And it's true. The news is out. Ben Joravsky's book is available to buy. All right. It's the greatest hits covering, my God, over 40 years of reporting. Chicago Reader. Go check it out, chicagoreader.com/Joravsky to get Ben's book and to become a Benhead. All that information, chicagoreader.com/Joravsky. Jay Marie, you missed the whole show. Oh my God.
There's another one tomorrow, Jay Marie.
Just hit
No
rewind.
sweat.
Hit rewind and you'll be good.
Yeah. Or you can listen to the podcast. All right. I want to thank Joanna Klonsky, outstanding job as she always does. And of course, the man, the myth, and legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this show would be possible. And as Joanna Klonsky, Mary Miller, and Chris Miller will tell you,
Oh, not
back
those
home
guys.
in Alton, what a combo that is. Back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Science is back, baby.
Trampoline parks can cause both minor and severe injuries. Common injuries include broken legs, compound fractures, head trauma, brain injuries, spinal
That
fractures,
is
neck
correct.
injuries, dislocations, and sprains.
That is
When
correct.
parents take their children to an amusement park or jump facility, they expect that the facility has their child's safety
That is
in mind.
correct.
They do not expect that facilities with an unsafe design and ineffective safety measures leading to injuries and potentially lifelong disabilities and death are allowed to operate.